Those were the good times.
Welcome to the Less Than a Day podcast. Don't ask us to explain the name. We're not going to. I'm Kay.
I'm Kiko.
And we're here to talk about books, movies, TV shows, geeky things. Major spoiler warnings for every piece of media ever created. So to kick things off, we'll go into our first segment, which is, as usual, current events. This is where Kiko and I catch each other up on the stuff that we've been watching or reading or playing over the last couple of weeks. Today, we have been watching the same thing for a change.
Yep, we both watched it together when... both shows on a whim.
Yeah.
And we both really enjoyed them.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Absolutely. I think it's been a while since I watched like a good TV show, and this was top notch.
Absolutely.
So the first show, and this might be a little controversial because it's gotten kind of mixed reviews, is called Chaos on Netflix. And it's definitely unique, which is crazy to say because it's another Greek mythology retelling show, but I thought it was pretty unique actually.
Yes. Actually, let me read out the summary real quick so people who haven't heard of it know what it's about. Chaos is a darkly comedic and contemporary reimagining of Greek mythology, exploring themes of gender, politics, power, and life in the underworld. 6 humans learn that they are component parts of an ancient prophecy.
Yeah, basically it's what if the Greek gods were still worshipped in the modern day?
Yeah.
But also, what if they're super sadistic? Which, I mean, if you look at the original mythology, that's kind of par for the course, really.
Mm-hmm.
But it was definitely interesting. Like, the plot kept going nonstop.
I wasn't bored at all. But then again, I think it's only 8 episodes, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. It's a pretty quick watch. I think we finished most of it together, even.
Yeah, I think we watched 4 episodes. But even the episodes aren't that long. They're 46 to 50-something minutes long.
Yeah. I would say it kind of feels like Percy Jackson for adults because, oh my god, it is dark.
Yeah.
Really dark.
Extremely. I think a lot of people didn't like Chaos because they thought it leaned too hard into the darker parts. And they showed scenes that they didn't really need to show. But usually I'm of that opinion. But I think for Chaos, for some reason, it worked.
Yeah, I think it actually worked really well with the comedic aspect of it because, I mean, it was funny. But then with, the very, dark, brutal scenes that you see sort of juxtaposed between all these, little jokes and joke characters and sort of the lighthearted attitude that some of the characters have. It's I feel like it really sort of leads back to the OG mythology, which is so dark, really brutal and dark, even though it's kind of been desensitized a little bit or sanitized a little bit for modern audiences. I feel like this sort of brings us back to the source material in that way.
I think for the lightheartedness, sometimes it's just comedic because the situation's whatever, funny, or someone says a funny thing, but a lot of the comedicness comes from the gods, or some of the characters. The gods don't care that much. They just don't care about things in the normal mortal way, right? So it seems like it's lighthearted, but they just don't care that much that
that's
so much there's honestly, I don't know how to
that's what makes it funny. It's it's so irreverent. They don't care. And that's what makes it funny, even though technically if you take a step back, it's oh, that's really, really dark.
Yeah, but that's the perfect descriptor for it, irreverent.
Yeah. I highly recommend it. We're kind of in an in-between right now where they may or may not make a season 2. They haven't announced anything yet. I think I won't be necessarily crushed if they don't, because I feel like the ending is sort of, it's not open-ended, but
they wrapped it up pretty neatly.
Yeah, things all the plot lines that you followed throughout the course of the season wrap up, and then they leave it open for, and where do we go from here? But you can also take like a good stab and like take a guess as to, okay, well, this is probably where it's gonna go.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully Netflix won't do what it's been doing and cancel good stuff.
Yeah. Do you think that they'll like keep with the same characters, or do you think they'll add more characters in the second season?
I think they have to add more characters, right? Like, I think the 3 characters that we get introduced to who sort of bring about the prophecy, I think we will still see more of, because they're the ones who have plot lines that are unresolved as of right now, except maybe Ariadne.
No, I thought Orpheus is pretty much...
Well, Orpheus is sort of irrelevant in terms of like
Yeah.
the overarching story. Like his only purpose, I think, was to bring Eurydice back.
Oh, you're talking about specifically the 3 people, who are part of
with the prophecy.
prophecy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like I think Orpheus is like one of those weird characters where like they could just let him go entirely, and I don't see that affecting the plot at all.
You know, yeah, I agree.
Which is weird. I kind of had mixed feelings about him, where it's like, on one hand, for Orpheus. On the other hand, I feel so bad for him.
Yeah, we were like cursing him out so much during like the beginning, like the first 4 episodes, and then like you kind of reluctantly start to see his... obviously we see his point of view, but like you sort of reluctantly start to feel bad for him. He just does so much. He does all the wrong things for the right reasons, you know? Or like not even for the right reasons, but like he's not an evil person. He's just someone who makes really bad decisions.
Yeah. I mean, cool motive, still murder. I think the thing is that I want to root for him because I am such a sucker for a love that conquers death. You know what I mean? Like, love so pure it affects the universe itself is not a trope you see too often these days, but it's something that I think growing up watching a lot of Disney movies, I love it. So the part of my brain is like, yes, I want you to succeed, but also fuck you, she deserves better.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, they could absolutely ignore his character completely in the next season, and it would probably be fine if we get a next season.
Oh yeah, like you said, I won't be too crushed if they decide not to.
Yeah, it is what it is. Okay, should we move on?
Yep.
So the second show that we watched together, which we actually also saw on Netflix, but it is an AMC show, is a show called Kevin Can For Himself. And I said Chaos was sort of unique in the way that it kind of approached Greek mythology, but this show is maybe one of the most unique shows I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. I cannot recommend it enough.
It's not what I expected in like the best way possible.
Yes, absolutely. So this show stars Annie Murphy, which is one of the things that drew me to it because I love Schitt's Creek. And it starts off like a normal sitcom. And growing up watching sitcoms, I was kind of already drawn in from that. And it plays out exactly like every single stupid laugh track, you know, husband hates his wife, here's a cast of quirky characters. It starts off exactly like that. And I think I saw some people online saying that like they started to watch it, saw that, and then were just like, yeah, no, I'm not in the mood, thanks. And then like stopped watching, which is such a shame because
they're missing out.
They are missing out because you do get that.
You know, that's so hypocritical of me. But I didn't stop because of that reason. And I'm not like opposed to finishing. Right. For clarification, I didn't finish the show, but not because I didn't like it or anything. It just, yeah. It's like, it's only 2 seasons, but I was too impatient. So I read like the little summaries for each episode. So I kind of know what happens.
I mean, yeah, because it's really suspenseful because they have that initial scene where they introduce the lovable idiot husband being, you know, typical I hate my wife humor. And then all of a sudden the wife leaves the room. The scene completely shifts, like the lighting changes. You go from that like oversaturated sitcom studio to like this dark, gritty camera.
Yeah, and I also appreciate the shift in sound. Because it goes from,
Yes.
that laugh track and that sort of sitcom noise to this eerily silent scene
Creepy
of
music, yeah.
Annie Murphy, her name's Allison, by herself in the kitchen. And it's so, it's like mind-boggling.
Yeah, it's such a cool shift the first time that happens. You're like, oh my God. Because it's just like the whole theme of the show is when you have these awful people, because they are like objectively awful, like the sitcom characters.
Oh, yes.
I mean, that's part of the reason that like I think Seinfeld ends on all of the characters going to jail for all the dumb, horrible things they've done over the course of the show. Like, they really are terrible, but it's played off as laughs because that's the comedy of it. But it's taking a look into, well, what would it actually be like for somebody to go through like this sort of life and experience, you know, this sort of sitcom shenanigans? What's the flip side of that? What if this isn't funny? What if this is actually like a nightmare? And I think that's just so cool.
Oh, yes. I mean, I'm trying to think of, have there been any shows like that? And I feel like maybe, but this is the first one that I've seen that does it to this effect.
I mean, if there are, I haven't seen it. I think the idea, I think I've seen what similar stuff in terms of romances of like, hey, you know all those tropes that go into like your typical rom-com? Well, if you really think about it, it's toxic. So what if we played on that, right? Mm-hmm. I've seen that, especially in like manhwa, where it's like, hey, all those like romantic stories you're reading, well, what's it like for the side characters who have to actually live in that world? That's a really common trope in manhwa, I think.
Yeah.
But I've never seen it play out like in terms of sitcoms.
You're right. That's what I thought that's what it reminded me of. It's not like a certain show or anything. It's manhwas that it reminded me of.
Yeah, I've never seen it in this format before.
Yeah. Like Allison, like, I want to say she breaks the fourth wall, but she doesn't, because she doesn't talk to the audience or the screen. But she kind of breaks the fourth wall of her own life, you know?
Yes. Oh my gosh. That's an excellent way to put it. I mean, everything about the show was, I think, so well done. All of the characters, even the characters that you initially think are like very one note, are actually deeply complex. Mm-hmm. The plot lines are so suspenseful. Like, it's honestly anxiety inducing, especially as you go on later in the season.
Yeah, it goes from 0 to 100 really fast during just the second episode.
This was really just excellent.
This is the type of show that you should go in completely blind, like we did. Do you want to talk about what you thought of the ending or like things that happened?
Okay. So, not to spoil it too much. If you don't want to be spoiled at all, just go ahead and skip this bit. But I felt like the show ended in the only way that it could, right? Yeah. Like, I don't know how I would write the ending differently, but at the same time, to me, it felt a little bit unsatisfying. Like, they had that final confrontation scene that you've been building towards for 2 seasons, right? Where Allison asks for a divorce finally. Right? And they have that shift where Kevin goes from the sitcom world to the gritty real world that Allison is living in. And you see the shift in him and you see that he's a little bit deranged. And it's like, everything about that scene is excellent. I just felt like it maybe needed to go on for like a beat longer. And I felt like there needed to be a little bit more emphasis on that and a little bit less emphasis on Patty and Allison's relationship going into those last couple episodes. I will say also that the second half of season 2 for me dragged a little bit because I felt like the constant back and forth where Allison is trying to decide whether or not she wants to leave or not, or like she decides one episode, no, I have to go, otherwise, you know, Patty's gonna go to jail or whatever, or like, no, actually I really want to stay, I want to be here with my friends and rebuild my life and blah blah blah. It started to get a little bit exhausting. So for me, while the ending I think ended exactly how it needed to, it's still felt a little bit unsettling or unfulfilling for me.
Because I imagine if you're building towards all this in such an intense way too, because even like I said, from the second episode, Allison just goes more than off the rails. You'd want a bigger sort of confrontation or a more, Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. So to close it off, Kevin can find himself. Go watch it. It's so good.
Yeah, a lot of good watches recently.
Yeah, honestly. But have you read anything good recently?
Did I?
Low expectations? Did you do any of it?
Did I? Oh, no. No, I didn't. I think I talked about finishing a Korean show called Good Partner. And I finished it, and it was good. That's all I have to say on it. But yeah, I don't think I have that many. Yeah, I didn't have any low expectations. I do have one current event, though, and it's that I'm extremely late to the game, but I did start playing Subnautica. And it is...
You're wild for that.
It is so addicting, and I will get Kay to play it with me. So we can both be cowardly together.
Funny.
I do everything in my power to avoid the area where the Leviathan is. It's so scary.
I will never understand why people want to play horror games. Subnautica, I think, is a little bit different because I think the world is really cool, regardless of like the horror aspect of it.
But it's not horror. It's not horror. Like,
yes, it is. If you're literally too scared to explore a portion of the map, yes, it's horror.
But honestly, dude, I got so many like jump scares. Oh my god.
Yeah, I don't do jump scares, man.
But Kay is absolutely playing it with me, and y'all will get an update.
That's so funny. That's so funny.
I'm telling you, this is happening. Like, this is written into your fate. Like the fates in Chaos, they have written that you're going to play this game with me.
Didn't they die? Weren't they brutally murdered, actually? Weren't they set on fire, actually? Huh, interesting.
But actually, didn't they like say a thing at the end? They came back and they were like, you can't really destroy fate.
But they were set on fire. So I think we're going to go with that reality. Thanks.
Well, your fate is inevitable. I am inevitable. And we're going to play it together. And we'll end on that note for current events. Mm-hmm. Do you have any current events?
I have some book updates. I read, let's see. Oh, I did. Actually, you know what? Yeah. I did say I was going to read A Broken Blade last time. And I did do that. And it was something. The first book was not bad. The first book actually, I think, did some really cool things that you don't get to see a whole lot. I think the protagonist really, really drives the plot forward instead of being like a passive observer, which I thought was really cool. Mm-hmm. But there's definitely nothing special about it. The whole series is just incredibly cliche.
Like Trial of the Sun Queen type cliche?
Not that type of cliche. Not like, oh, here's a trope you've seen a million times before. Cliche and like, here's a plot that you've seen a million times before. Like, it's your typical tyrant king, imperialism, etc., etc.
Okay. Like Elements.
Yeah, we've seen this. The protagonist is really different and is very flawed and is struggling with trauma, like so much trauma. Every single book is her dealing with the same trauma. It doesn't go away. And I think that is also something that's really different because a lot of times you get like protagonists who are like, oh yeah, my parents died anyway. But she truly, genuinely is constantly grappling with like the weight of what she's done in the past over and over and over again. The problem for me is that the series definitely gets worse over time. Book 3 was like laughably bad.
Why do they all do that? Why must they all?
Like, obviously, like I said, the plot is very predictable, so I saw every plot twist coming from a mile away. It's just that, you know.
Yeah.
At the very least, it could have been fun to read, and it was not fun to read. And so I'm probably going to DNF that series. So
yeah, I haven't read a series in such a long time because I've been like either not reading or like DNFing series, or I'm just not interested enough to go on. So I need to find something, man.
Yeah, it's so weird because usually I'm pretty gung-ho about like, no, we are going to the end. But
yeah, up until recently, like within like the last 2 or 3 years, up until then, like I'd been really strict on myself about finishing or seeing an entire series all the way through. But Yeah,
honestly,
that's not
actually,
happening anymore.
You know what? Thinking about it, maybe I will read it. I'm just really salty with the way the third book ended. Oh, should I mention I read When the Moon Hatched, and I have opinions about it, but we're gonna hold off till you read it. I think
Yeah,
we will talk
and
about
I
that.
will read it. It will happen.
By the way, okay, book 2 of When the Moon Hatched is called The Ballad of Falling Dragons, which is the
Forking.
coolest, like, even When the Moon Hatched is such a cool name, and you're gonna love reading it. Shall we move on to our main topic?
Yes, we shall.
Okay, so as we are officially in the spooky month, I thought we could talk about some of our favorite spooky books, which, before any fans of horror out there get excited, I do not like horror.
No, by spooky, we're not talking about horror. We've never even heard the word horror before. We're talking purely.
I think Five Nights at Freddy's is the closest I've ever gotten to watching a horror movie. So, no, we're talking about one of my favorite genres, which is paranormal.
Those were the good times.
Those were the good days. There is especially, I think, a time period around like the middle school, early high school era where I think because of the popularity of Twilight, there was an absolute boom in like paranormal fiction and paranormal romance.
Yeah. Not only Twilight, though. Like, Twilight wasn't really, like, the only factor. There were obviously other books, but I guess Twilight would be...
Twilight was the biggest.
Like, one of the bigger ones. Like, I feel like Vampire Academy was quite big, too.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting, because I feel like Vampire Academy was not... Like, it was big, but it's not as big as Twilight, at least as far as I can tell. Like...
Oh, not as big as Twilight. I'm saying within, like, sort of the reading world of paranormal.
Oh, buddy. Man, okay. I want to immediately start comparing Vampire Academy and Twilight, but we're going to save that for later.
Wait, but no, it's so different, though.
They're so different. Vampire Academy is so much better.
It's so much better, but, like, it's not great, you know? Like, well, it's not great.
I remember it. I remember it fondly, actually.
No, I absolutely remember it fondly, but it's like if we talk about specific things in the book, we're like, oh, this is not.
Well, yeah, I mean,
a lot honestly, of like age gap stuff that I'm.
Oh, the predator that is Dimitri.
So uncomfy. I think even when I was reading those books, I was kind of uncomfortable with I was like confused. I'm like, but isn't this wrong? Isn't this not allowed?
Yeah.
Look, age gap isn't my thing.
I honestly think if you're comparing Vampire Academy to Bloodlines, I really do think Bloodlines is much better.
Mm-hmm.
But that's also because I love Sydney. Anyway, so paranormal. To give like a brief introduction of like what paranormal fiction is, what paranormal romance is. Well, I think like the Wikipedia definition is just like supernatural elements and otherworldly concepts, but to me it's just like anything set in sort of a modern or modern-ish world, like something within the last 100 years that includes elements of some kind of magical creature. So like your vampires and werewolves and ghosts and witches and all of that.
And aliens. Honestly, I forgot. I did read some alien fiction too. But
that's interesting. I feel like Alien is a little bit more sci-fi than paranormal to me.
For me, I don't know. Paranormal is a weird like combination of whatever the paranormal, supernatural genre, whatever itself, and it has fantasy in it, and it also has sci-fi in it. But yeah, because you would consider like Ghostbusters as paranormal, right?
Aw.
So like.
Yeah,
aliens, actually, ghosts,
but Ghostbusters are ghosts.
Yeah, but like about? Sort of like aliens, ghosts, they sort of go hand in hand a lot.
Yeah. I see what you mean. Where it's like borderline sci-fi. Like even ghosts can sometimes be like pseudoscience-y.
I'm talking from like about it from that perspective. How we usually see aliens and ghosts as usually sci-fi, but they
I still feel like if you have just aliens and not ghosts or something there also, I feel like that's still sci-fi to me.
Okay, there's a specific example from your favorite author, Kay. Did I forget her name? Absolutely. So we're gonna Google it. What's the name? Obsidian, right? That's the name of the book. Lux, the Lux series. It's Jennifer L. Armentrout.
Oh, ugh, yeah.
Yeah, because they describe it as paranormal sci-fi romance.
I feel like that can also just be because they want to throw in a bunch of buzzwords. I mean, there's no strict boundaries for this genre at all, I don't think, because it's so up in the air of what it is. I just personally wouldn't consider aliens.
Oh,
paranormal.
interesting. Like on Goodreads, for genres, the second genre is paranormal. And then it's young adult, paranormal, romance, fantasy, and the aliens, and then it goes science fiction. Weird.
I've never read it, so I don't know what like context is for like the alien part of it all.
It's literally aliens. Like literally like secret aliens on Earth type thing. It's purely...
Oh, you know what? That's like very reminiscent of I Am Number 4. Which
Oh, yeah, I mean, yeah. I haven't read I Am Number 4 in a long time, but
Oh, honestly, okay. Like thinking back on it, that also feels like more in the paranormal genre than sci-fi to me. You know what it is? I think if there's more of a focus on like alien being like a type of creature that lives on Earth, as opposed to like aliens coming from other worlds, as opposed to like space travel, etc.
Yeah.
It can give more of a paranormal than sci-fi vibe. I think I can understand that.
That's perfect. Like we said before, it's like things that take place sort of on Earth in this sort of modernish world, you know? Like, I don't think if Obsidian took place on like another planet, if the book took place on another planet, I think I would pretty much straight up consider it sci-fi. And there are books I've read like that, of course, but for Ender's Game. Ender's Game I would consider pure sci-fi, but it kind of takes place on Earth. But they're fighting like aliens in outer space. So that's why I would consider it pure sci-fi.
There's also like a focus on like the technology aspect of it, and like they don't interact with aliens so much as they do in like I Am Number 4 or something. Yeah.
So yeah, definitely like a very interesting like little Venn diagram.
Yeah, I mean it's so I think hard to define what the boundaries of. I will also say that like the paranormal romance era of books I think is a good precursor of going into urban fantasy books for adults.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like the vibes are very similar.
Yeah.
I mean, you see a lot of the same cast of characters. I feel like there's a couple of different like subgenres also. Like you do have like the aliens, and then you have your vampires, and then you have the other awful alpha werewolf subgenre. I'm
gonna be so for real. Usually the paranormal, like at least because I read those paranormal romances on those like 3 or 4 shelves. That was the paranormal genre in school, like in the school library, and that was usually only vampires and or werewolves. Oh, do you know what's this? Yeah, this is exactly what you were saying. Like Google says that some subgenres of paranormal fiction include urban fantasy.
Yeah. I think urban fantasy has like a little bit more to it. Like I wouldn't consider a book urban fantasy unless magic is built into the world a little bit.
Like the definition of urban fantasy is almost, it's so similar to how we define paranormal taking place in our modern world, right? And that's what urban fantasy is. So
it's very similar. It's very similar.
So there's
I just feel like urban fantasy is a little bit more grown up to me because, like, I don't know, like that. Not to say that like throwing like vampires into a book makes it for teenagers or something. It just feels like very from that era for me.
Yeah,
and personally,
by the way, like I have to admit, like our sort of experience with paranormal fiction was pretty much a majority. Like they would classify as paranormal romance. Or like pretty much all of it would classify as paranormal romance, and so our view is kind of narrow. Like like because if you really think about it, paranormal also includes like zombies and shit, you know? Like we don't really branch out like that.
Yeah, like Supernatural is absolutely a paranormal show. Like I wouldn't even consider that fantasy. That's pure paranormal to me. Although you could call that a paranormal romance too. My boy Cass.
I'm sure there's a lot of people who are in agreement with you.
I think just like that era of books in general, you got a lot of romance in there regardless.
Yeah.
I think that like I read very few books where it's like the point is that characters are getting together. Like you do have like the Twilight style books where it's like the plot is there's a normal person and then like there's a magical creature and they fall in love. Like there definitely are a whole bunch of books like that. But I think a vast majority of them were more like the main character is some kind of magical creature and they're dealing with like their world, something is going on, there's like some overarching plot, like even Vampire Academy, right? I don't think romance was the point of that at all. It's definitely there, it's definitely an element of the story that gets a lot of attention, but you could also take it out and I don't think the overarching story would necessarily be affected.
Yeah.
I mean, same for books like Hex Hall. If you took the romance out of it, literally the plot would not necessarily change all that much. I think, honestly, same with Mortal Instruments, too. Although Mortal Instruments does feel a little bit more urban fantasy than paranormal to me, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know why I would.
It's because, like, the main character spends a lot of time in, like, the she does spend a lot of time in the human world, but she just spends much more time in the sort of fantasy part of the world. And you know how like there's a whole like sort of underworld or area with like the werewolves.
There's like a fantasy setting.
Yeah, whenever they go towards that area, like it feels paranormal-ish, but it's definitely mainly fantasy for me, especially. You know, for fantasy, especially for fantasy, like the main characters usually have powers and stuff a lot of the times.
Oh yeah, I mean, but for paranormals, they do too. Like
yeah. I mean, yeah, definitely. I think for paranormal, it's more like it's because of like what type of creature they are that the power results from that.
Oh, as opposed to like getting magic, like it's a physical part of them, as opposed to like of getting it in some way. Yeah, I don't know, because if you really think about it, the Mortal Instruments does have vampires, it does have werewolves, it does also fall into that sort of other subgenre of paranormal that focuses on angels and demons. Because there's like a whole subsection of angel romances, which I did not enjoy.
Yeah, definitely not the best.
Your favorite Hush Hush?
No, one of my least favorite books I've ever read. Hush Hush. I think forcing people to read it should be a form of torture. Okay, have you ever read The Fifth Wave?
No. I've heard a lot about it. I think I just kind of missed the cutoff for that one.
Okay, so that's like a dystopian alien sort of novel, but in the like genres here, they don't say paranormal, which is even though like it has like aliens and it's like dystopia on Earth, I'm assuming. It's been so long since I've read this. But yeah, it's more like post-apocalyptic. I feel like a lot of paranormal is not post-apocalyptic.
No, it's not really. It's usually really, a lot of paranormal is like, hey, there's a hidden secret world of magical creatures that have existed for centuries.
Yeah, that's more paranormal.
Yeah. I'm honestly so... Okay. In like the whole vampire versus werewolf debate, I'm definitely not team vampire because I hate vampire. Like,
me too.
I don't know what it is. Like, they kind of gross me out.
Oh yeah, that's why pretty much every paranormal book I've read has the main people are the werewolves, or the good guys, quote unquote, are the werewolves, or the main character is a werewolf.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't super love werewolves either. Mostly because like I think somewhere along the way there was that shift to like the whole alpha dynamic.
And do you know, that's like really, I think Wattpad really fed into that. I'm going to be so for real.
And,
I think,
you know, I'm just not a fan of that because I think
Me
a lot
neither.
of those romances are incredibly coercive.
Oh yeah, they're definitely so not. They're very toxic and not a lot of the times not consensual in the beginning. It gives a lot of, especially in Wattpad, but like we're not talking about that, but like let's talk about it because we have to. It was very Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, I'm not about that life.
Yeah, but even saying that, definitely werewolves over vampires. Something about sucking, like the consensual,
Okay.
whatever.
Okay. If I absolutely had to pick which one I wanted to be, I'm going werewolf.
Oh, 100%. I'm not sucking blood for the rest. I'm not. Do you know the limitations of being a man? Just the limitations. Like, I don't know, no matter what like world you're in, whatever you're.
Imagine having to give up enchiladas.
Yeah, but like maybe the only. Honestly, I was gonna say Twilight vampire just for the sparkles, but they can't eat food. They can't taste food, so that's a hard no. Like, there's never been a harder no. Like, no. Like I thought, oh, at least you'll get a cool power sometimes. No, and sparkles, but no. If they can't taste food, absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't know, dude. Like,
Honestly, the werewolves in that book kind of like they don't seem to be having a good time either. So, like, I feel like their shift is painful. But I feel like in some like there's like within some books sometimes like the shift is like the actual breaking of bones, and sometimes it's just like a magical transformation.
I don't particularly like if I had to be one, it's definitely got to be a werewolf.
Okay, so
if I had to date one, shoot me, just kill me. I don't want either.
There's no way I would find myself in such a in that situation. So like I don't need to imagine that. But Kay, would you rather be a human or a werewolf in like a world of paranormal?
Okay. I'm choosing human almost every single time. The only world in which I would choose to be not human is like, oh, by the way, every 10 minutes you're getting attacked.
So like if you were in the world of, you read the Kate Daniels series, right?
I read the very first one and then gave up.
Right. There's werewolves and stuff in there. Would you be like a shifter or would you be like 100% human? There are obviously other species, but like, would you be a supernatural creature or would you be just a plain old human?
A human
in that world?
Well, first of all, that whole world is incredibly fucked up on its own with like the whole magic waves and stuff. Yeah. But I think there's a middle ground where you don't have to be anything. You can just do magic.
I forgot. It's been a long time.
Yeah. So the only world in which, like, okay, if I'm in Twilight, right? Mm-hmm. Would I choose to be like a shifter or like choose to be human? I'm choosing human. Oh, like unless I'm like Bella and like the world everything is attracted to be attacking me, right? Mm-hmm. I think I'm choosing to be human every time.
Yeah. I mean, because that world is normal. Like we talked about this in the was that episode 3? The worlds we can't, or like
6. Yeah, of like survivability.
Yeah.
Like there's some worlds where I think it would be cool to be like a fantasy creature of some type. Like, for example, Hex Hall, right? It would be cool to be a witch because there's like literally no downsides to that. They just do magic and it's cool.
But for like, if you were in Harry Potter, you would 100% be a human.
And be a wizard. Sign me up.
Oh, I was going to say human. Are you kidding? I'm not getting involved in the war efforts. Thank you very much.
I don't. Okay. I would like if it's in the modern day, I'm choosing to be a wizard. Like, okay. Yeah. Okay. So jumping back to paranormal, there's like another like little bit of a subgenre where I think there's like witches and wizards, but they're not quite like fantasy. They really play into like more of the urban fantasy of like modern day wizards and stuff. And that's the type of fantasy creature I would like to be. Like hands down. Witches and wizards, is also a part, like there is a part of that that is like urban fantasy paranormal as opposed to like fantasy, where it's like they exist in the modern world and they have like the spell books and stuff.
Like their like bodies are human. Like they are human. They just have magic type thing.
Yeah. I think if immortality's on the table, I'm not taking it. Immortality is a curse.
No. Yo, honestly, yeah, being a witch or a wizard or whatever is just like a normal human being with magic.
Yes, that's what I want to be. My ass is not turning into an oversized dog once a month. Thank you very much.
So you're telling me
I don't want to be sucking no blood.
You would be that alpha. You would be the omega.
I don't want to be. I don't want to be from the planet Zoltar or something. I don't want to have wings and have to read the Bible. Like,
is the Winx Club paranormal?
Okay. No, it's not. It's fantasy because it takes place in light.
No, I get it. Yeah. I just messing with you. You said no wings, so.
Okay, actually, yeah, there is a whole other subgenre on top of that where it's like fairies, but it's not like the modern day, like Akatar. Or like,
no, they're more like mischievous beings of myth. Or
yeah, like trickster gods, like we're talking Seelie, Unseelie. There's like a whole genre of that, which I think actually I feel like I would love to get back to instead of sort of the stuff that we have now where fae is just a term that's thrown around with no consequences, where they're just like, oh yeah, you're a fairy, so that means you're hot as shit and immortal and you have pointy ears and magic. And it's like, nah, brother, where's the like,
yeah, honestly,
knowing their true name means you own them? Where's the like, you have to be careful how you speak or otherwise you could promise away your soul? Where's the like kidnapping people? And
yeah, like the fae nowadays are just, they're not like the fae that paranormal fae is.
Yeah. They're not as dark as they used to be, like creepy, otherworldly. They're just, it's honestly like the same devolvement that vampires got, where they went from this, horrifying creature to Edward Cullen.
Edward Cullen was horrifying. Thank you.
Oh my god, I'm in the process of reading Midnight Sun, and yes, you're correct.
Yo, sometimes I think when I was rereading it, I was like, I feel like sometimes I think I could be Edward up. Sometimes
someone needed to.
Maybe that was just wishful thinking.
Someone really needed to. Brother, okay, I don't want to talk too much about Twilight, because we'll get to that. Twilight really did things for this genre, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Anyways, let's move on from that.
Yeah, what were we talking about? Oh yeah, which one you'd want to be?
Yeah.
I guess you could be a ghost. That would be cool.
No, that wouldn't. What about my food? No, there's way too. I'd be dead. There are too many limitations. I'd rather be like a witch or a wizard.
Yeah, that does feel like a little bit of a cop-out. No downsides.
That's okay. That's up to us. We're deciding the rules on this game.
That kind of reminds me of Beautiful Creatures, so maybe there are downsides.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on like whatever world you're in or whatever the rules for whatever you're going to be. But yeah,
Beautiful Creatures like has such an interesting vibe to it. It's so like,
it was very like gothic, like it was very,
yes,
it was that sort of vibe. It was dark.
It was. I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember what happened in those books so much, and I also think as I was reading it, I didn't necessarily understand what was happening.
Oh yeah, it was such a difficult, like more difficult read. But I remember I read at least 2 or 3 books.
Oh, I read the whole series.
Yeah, I don't remember if I finished it or if I stopped.
That's an interesting series too, because if I remember correctly, the main character Ethan is just like a normal dude, and he stays a normal dude the entire time. Like,
yeah, he just becomes associated with the family of witches, right?
Yeah, like he is Bella. You know what I mean? Like he falls in love with the paranormal creature. I think her name was like Lena or something. Mm-hmm. He gets tied up in their world, but he is fully mortal. And I think he dies too in like the 3rd book or something. And then the 4th book is about him trying to come back to life.
Honestly, my goldfish brain once again can barely remember that.
I mean, it's been like a full 12 years since I've read it, maybe 13 years. So
yeah, I haven't read it since like 6th or 7th grade.
Oh my god, the movie was awful.
I don't think I've ever watched the movie, but I know that there is a movie, but I didn't care enough about it when it came. Like,
Yeah. Okay, let's talk about. I think I'm just tired of talking about the negatives. Let's talk about your favorites. What are your like favorite paranormal books?
brother, there were so many. I read so many. Yeah, like you were saying, Hex Hall was great, and honestly, I hate to say it, but back then, Mortal Instruments used to be great. You know, before
I think Mortal
before a
Instruments
certain
is
point.
still good.
Yeah, it's still like a really like. I think it was written really well, but there's too much happened, and like certain things happened that like just threw me off
Are
completely.
you talking about the incest?
Yes, the incest. And like
like
things about
honestly,
yeah.
if I feel like even more than Mortal Instruments, I think Clockwork Angel is what it's called. The other series.
Oh yes, that's what everyone loves.
Yeah, that is fantastic. I think that trends a little bit more fantasy for me personally because it like takes place in sort of the past. But I feel like the Mortal Instruments was good. Like I'm remembering it, and honestly, besides the whole weird Jace Clary thing, which they're not like I get it. Yeah, it's weird, but at the same time, they weren't actually siblings.
You know, sure. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know they weren't, but it's the fact they did. Yeah, but ignoring all that,
let's
yeah,
talk
I
about it.
did
Let's
enjoy
talk
the
about it.
series.
Let's talk about it. So the problem it sounds like for you is that they continued to
Romance.
want to date
They
each other and be
continue
with each
to
other.
romance despite them saying they're not going to when they thought they were siblings. And I think there was a kiss too. I think there was a kiss when they thought.
Yeah, but okay.
But and then like there's something with the actual brother too was like weird towards Clary.
Yeah, well, that's him being a creep, and I mean, she's always thought he was a creep, and like him kissing her was
Yeah.
like a bad. That was a
But
bad. But that's like
did we gotta go through that? You know, did we have to? I think no. I mean,
he
no.
was the villain, right? Like I think
like,
that
you know, a villain doesn't have to
but
be
villains doing
incestual.
fucked up things is like par for the course.
Honestly, yeah, I guess, but
I don't like. I think that at least in terms of Jason Clary, and it's been almost a decade, but I think that at the very least they didn't. You can't just, I think, erase your feelings, right?
yeah, I mean, despite all of that, I finished the entire series, and I did love it. I think that it was a really like written well. Like I think, yeah, it was.
Yeah,
it was a
good.
different like quality
It was
of
good.
books than what I had read before. You know. So yeah,
It was
definitely
good.
one of the ones.
I haven't read like the newer stuff because I think like after a certain point I was like I'm ready to move on from this.
Yeah.
But
Because it was such a long series. Like,
oh yeah.
anyways, yeah. Moving on from that, there was a series. I don't remember if I actually finished the series or not, but I feel like I read at least the first two. But The Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Lainey Taylor. Such like a different it was such a weird book. One of the weirdest books I've ever read. Like the world was weird. The powers were weird. The creatures were weird. Yeah. I think it was really interesting though, but definitely also a kind of difficult book to read because it was so confusing.
I know that like speaking of the Fae, right? The Iron Fae was definitely at the time one of my favorites.
Oh yeah, it was. Man, the way I ripped through those,
Oh my god.
I read those
it
so
was
fast.
So good. Like absolutely looking back, I can never read those again because
No.
Megan is a child and Ash is a ancient creature and
Yeah.
Gulag, but at the time, fantastic, and it ended really, really well as well. Like, just so good.
Other books. Yeah, Vampire Academy. Like, aside from
Okay,
the
yeah,
romance, I think it was.
let's talk about it. Like,
Look.
I think Rose remains one of my favorite protagonists, even though I don't remember a whole lot about her. She was so like
She was so cool.
she was just so cool. And I think a really cool part of that series is I think the most important relationship was Rose and Lissa.
Yeah, I loved that like relationship so much.
Dude, the bonds of sisterhood are just phenomenal.
How about for you?
For me, like you said, Hexhall remains one of my favorite series of all time. There's also this one called Paranormalcy, which at the time I loved. I honestly don't even know if I could explain what it's about because I don't fully remember. But it was very cool, definitely paranormal. I mean, it's in the name. Beautiful creatures. Oh, there's also like there's a whole other subgenre which we haven't touched at all, which is like the mermaid subgenre. And I feel like they're always sad.
They're all
Like,
they're always like kind of the same. They always have like the same sort of conflict. If I'm being so
yes.
for real.
Yes, the main character finds out that they are a mermaid, and like the conflict is always, do you go to be in the ocean or do you stay on land?
And
Every single
usually
time.
it's usually on the dad side. Usually like the dad is the king, you know?
Yeah. Not always. Again, I read so
I
many
guess.
of them, but
Wait,
some
you're
of
so
them
right.
weren't.
Sometimes the mom is the queen, but yeah, usually they're the special little snowflake. But I think mermaids are kind of fantasy. Like they lean into fantasy more than other.
I would say
They lean into fantasy more than other paranormal creatures for me.
Yeah, it's definitely borderline, but I still think that because it takes place in like a modern world and like features a fantasy creature, I think it still falls in paranormal. Like obviously the big one that I'm thinking of is of Poseidon.
Yeah. Like I'm looking at it right now, and the first genre it shows is fantasy.
Yeah, I don't know. It kind of for me is lumped in with the other ones. Like, cause I don't know what about it would make it more fantasy than anything else.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Yep. Of Poseidon, man, that series really fell off, I think.
You know, I don't think I've ever actually read the books properly. I think I may have read like the first book ish. I guess I didn't care enough about it, but I wanted to know what happened, so I'll just flip through random pages on a book of like this other books and then like read the last page. But like I know what happens. So
The first two, I remember the first two being really good, and then I read the third one and I was just like, oh, what the fuck
I think
is
I
this?
remember
Like,
hating Galen, whatever his name is. Yeah, I know.
dude, I don't remember. I could not tell you what any of the characters' names are.
That's
Poseidon?
the main. That's you're so.
Oh, shout out to Shadow Falls as well. I think Shadow Falls is peak paranormal. Like, peak. It's got everything. I don't think you could get more paranormal than that.
I don't think I read that one. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I would love to, I think, read more paranormal themed books, like towards adults. But honestly, I feel like the genre is really just more urban fantasy now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to think of like paranormal books for adults, and nothing's coming to mind in recent years, at least.
And honestly, I can't really think of like adult paranormal books, but that may also be because fantasy is so big right now that I've come across way more fantasy than paranormal. So I'm not really looking out for adult paranormal books.
Yeah, maybe we'll get back in the vibe of it for the spooky month. I don't know. We'll see. I remember this genre very fondly.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know?
Truly another time.
They just don't do it like they used to.
They just don't do it like they used to no more.
I feel like a lot of like the paranormal books I see nowadays are really just like werewolf romances, and your girl's not into that. Like, Give me world-ending conflicts. Give me characters trying to learn about their mixed heritage and figuring out how their powers work. But maybe they're also 30, you know?
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I think that's pretty much all I have to say.
Yeah, same here. I feel like we've said what we've had to say, or what we wanted to say.
So let's kind of wind things down and talk about our low expectations, whether that's low expectations for ourselves to read or watch what we say we're going to, or low expectations for the potentially trash media that we're about to consume. What you gonna do this week, Kiko? You gonna commit?
Yo, I've gotta say yes to the book. You know, I've gotta say yes to the dress. Gotta say yes to the book. Gotta say yes to When the Moon Hatched. I will read it, and it will happen within this week.
Interesting.
As for other books, there are other books, but I'm gonna focus on Moon Hatched. There is a show that I'm looking forward to. Vox Machina season 3 is coming out, baby.
Let's go. I am getting the cookbook ready. We're gonna make a day out of it, I think.
Absolutely. Oh, and there is another show that I've surprisingly am kind of looking forward to, and it's the new Tomb Raider show that's coming out. The animated series, Tomb Raider: The Legend of Lara Croft. So I'm excited for that. The pictures of the animation look good. They're in the Vox Machina kind of style. So
okay, I mean, I didn't even know they were doing that, but I really liked the old Lara Croft movies.
Oh yeah, honestly, yeah, it's coming out on October 10th. Tomb Raider.
I'll be checking that out too then.
I'm trying to. Where are they? I wonder where they're releasing it. This feels like an Amazon Prime type thing. Like the animation looks like that, but let's do a quick search. Oh, Netflix. Oh, it's coming out on Netflix.
Oh, interesting. Well, I guess I'll check it out then.
Yep. How about you? You got any?
Well, unfortunately, I'm in the middle of my mandatory homework for this podcast, which is teaser for next week. It's Twilight.
Yeah.
I think I just finished the first book, and I had the genius idea to read Midnight Sun directly after Twilight, so I could get the conflicting viewpoints and see what Edward was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And I gotta be honest, Edward is such an exhausting character. I don't want to spoil too much because we're gonna talk about this in detail. Mm-hmm. But the main takeaway I had from Twilight was, oh my god, Bella is so exhausting. She's so dramatic. And so I was like, okay, Edward, at least from his POV, we get to see the other Cullens and there's supernatural things going on. How is he more whiny and dramatic and just
he's had longer to work on it.
Oh my god, the definition of broody. I can't with him. It's gotten so bad that I think I need to I literally am craving the Bella New Moon depression over this Midnight Sun bullshit. It's so bad, dude. I don't know. I think I will have to take a break from it just so I can finish these books before we talk about it.
I heard people do tandem reads, so I might try that since I've already read both the books before.
Yeah, try it.
Reading at the same time, which is kind of wild, but I don't know. We'll try to figure it out.
Oh my god, I have so much to say, but we will save it for next time.
Yep.
Beyond that, I have high expectations for Vox Machina, and that's about it. Oh, I'm enjoying Misfits and Magic too.
Oh, yep, same here.
Season 2 is fantastic.
Anyways, I think that's it for us.
Yeah, that's it. So thank you everybody for listening. You can follow us
on @lessthanadaypod@gmail.com. Email is there, or you can follow us at lessthanadaypod on Instagram and Twitter and Threads. And you can also follow us on Goodreads and Storygraph.
Yep. Thanks for listening.
Bye.